I want to talk about something that doesn't get said enough. Not every wound comes from the person that hurt you. Some of the deepest wounds come from the people who were supposed to protect you and didn't. The people who were closest to you, the ones who should have seen it, and the ones who should have known and didn't. I'm not saying any of this to assign blame, and I'm not saying this to open old wounds for the sake of it. I'm saying it because I've lived it. And I know how much it costs to carry that particular silence. The silence of why, of wondering why nobody came. This is Coffee Talk with Paul. This is part one of a 3-part series on the people who didn't protect you when they should have. Tonight we're talking about the ones who were supposed to know. The family, the parents, the people closest to you. So, when people talk about abuse and trauma, the conversation almost always centers on the person who caused the harm. That makes sense because they're the one who did it. But there's another layer of pain that really doesn't get talked about enough. The pain of the people who didn't stop it. The parent who didn't notice something was wrong. The family member who saw the signs and looked the other way. The person you lived with, ate dinner with, trusted completely, who somehow missed what was happening right in front of them. Or they ignored it. There's that. That pain is different from the pain of what was done to you. It's quieter. It's more complicated. And in a lot of ways, it's harder to talk about. Because how do you grieve the protection you never got from the people that you loved the most? How do you hold anger towards someone you also love? Most people don't. They bury it. They make excuses. They tell themselves it wasn't that person's fault. They protect everyone else's feelings at the expense of their own. I know that because I did that exact thing for decades. So, when I was 12, that's when the abuse started. It was a close family friend, someone my parents trusted completely, and someone who was in our home at our table, and for years I said nothing. Not because I didn't want the help, but because he threatened my family. And I loved my family, I guess, more than I loved my own safety. So I made a decision that no 12-year-old should ever have to make. I decided to protect them by staying silent. And I guess what I didn't understand at the time, what took me years to work through, was the complicated grief that came with that silence. Because underneath my decision to protect my parents was a question that I couldn't say out loud. Why didn't they see it? Now, I'm not blaming them, and I want to be absolutely clear about that. They didn't know because I made sure they didn't know. I protected them from it. But there's still plenty of healing, and a part of healing that requires you to sit with the grief of not being seen, of going through something that big and having the people closest to you have no idea. That grief is real, and it deserves to be acknowledged. Not to punish anyone, not to rewrite history, because what's done is done, but because you cannot fully heal from something you're not allowed to feel. So I want to talk about something, though, that might be uncomfortable. Sometimes the people who didn't protect you genuinely didn't know. I was very good at hiding that emotion, and I was able to turn it off and be myself around my family. So there really wasn't any signs that they would have been able to pick up on. So I don't hold any of them responsible for not knowing. Abuse is designed to stay hidden. The people who cause harm are often skilled at presenting a completely different face to the world. They groom not just their victims, but everyone around them. They build trust deliberately so that nobody questions them. And sometimes, like in my case, the victim themselves is working to keep it hidden to protect the people they love from the weight of it. But sometimes, and this is the harder truth, the signs were there, or the people around them, or I'm sorry, the people around you knew, and they chose not to act, or they chose not to see them. Not always out of cruelty, but sometimes out of their own fear, their own denial, their own inability to accept something that terrible could be happening in their home, in their family, or to someone that they loved. It doesn't make it okay. It just means that the people who failed to protect you were also, in some ways, failing themselves. So, understanding that is not the same as excusing it. You can understand why something happened and still grieve that it did. So, it's kind of like the grief that you weren't allowed to feel. And here's what I want you to hear tonight. If you are carrying grief about the people who should have protected you and didn't, that grief is valid. You're allowed to love someone and also grieve what they failed to give you. You are allowed to understand why they didn't see it and feel the weight of not being seen. You're allowed to hold both of those things at the same time. Healing does not require you to pretend that the absence of protection didn't cost you anything. It cost you everything. It cost you your sense of safety, your ability to trust, your belief that the people who love you will show up when it matters most. Acknowledging that cost is not weakness. It's not self-pity, and it's not blame. It's honesty. And honesty is where healing begins. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you to forgive the people who didn't protect you. That's not my place, and that is not the point of this conversation. What I am going to tell you is this. The fact they didn't see it or they didn't stop it says nothing about your worth. It says nothing about whether you deserve protection. You did. Every child does. Every person does. Their failure was not your fault. Okay? So, in part 2, we're going to talk about the ones who looked away, the friends, the peers, the bystanders, the family, who saw or knew something was wrong and did nothing. And that one is going to be just as honest as this one. Okay? So please take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time right here on Coffee Talk with Paul.